My name is Diana Willette, and for as long as I can remember, my family has labeled me the cool aunt. Not because I wear leather jackets or ride a motorcycle, but because I'm the one who shows up to birthday parties with Lego sets, listens to long-winded kid stories without checking my phone, and somehow always ends up on the floor, helping build cardboard forts while the adults pretend they're exhausted from doing nothing. I'm 34, single, and child-free by choice, three facts that seem to bother my family far more than they bother me. I work in marketing for a mid-sized software firm, which means my days are spent flying across time zones, juggling client calls, and surviving on caffeine I never finish before it goes cold. It's a chaotic life, but it's one I built with intention and sacrifice. I love my condo, I love my independence, and I love that my weekends are mine. But if you ask my family, especially my older sister Marissa, my life is basically a long vacation. Marissa is 38, married to her husband Darren, and they have 3 kids under 10. Their life revolves around school schedules, meal prepping, work deadlines, and the never-ending chaos of raising young children. I don't envy their exhaustion, but Marissa has an uncanny ability to weaponize it. Every conversation turns into a subtle reminder that her responsibilities are real, while mine are apparently optional. If I mention a stressful week at work, she counters with the kids' stomach flu. If I say I barely slept, she responds with how the youngest woke up 3 times and how Darren slept through it all. Our mother, who still lives in the same house we grew up in, always smiles at Marissa like she's some noble warrior carrying the weight of the world, while I'm an overgrown teenager who doesn't know what pressure feels like. For years, I tried to be reasonable. I babysat without being asked. I picked up groceries during tight months. I showed up last minute to help with the kids. I even paid for their oldest son's braces when insurance didn't cover everything. Something I never mentioned to anyone else. I didn't do it for praise. I did it because family is supposed to help one another. But somewhere along the way, help became expected, and expected became mandatory. Whenever I said I was tired, I was told I didn't know tired. Whenever I said I was busy, I was reminded that having no kids should mean unlimited availability. And whenever I set boundaries, they treated them as inconveniences instead of choices. Everything came to a breaking point last Thursday. I had a work trip scheduled for Chicago, a 3-day marketing summit with clients I had been cultivating relationships with for months. It was an important trip, one that could significantly impact my career trajectory. The night before the flight, I stopped by my mother's house for dinner. She made lasagna, Marissa and Darren brought their kids, and I brought a bottle of wine I knew Mom liked. I went out of obligation, expecting a normal, slightly chaotic family dinner, and nothing more. Dinner began peacefully. The children ran in circles around the living room. Mom talked about the tomatoes in her garden. Marissa complained about the school drop-off line, the kids refusing to finish breakfast, Darren's late meetings, and the babysitter canceling again. I listened, nodded, offered sympathy, and even said I could pick up groceries on Sunday after my flight home. That one comment became the match that lit everything on fire. Marissa looked at me very casually, as though she was asking me to grab her a napkin, and said, "You can skip your trip tomorrow, right? The kids need someone to take them to school." At first I thought she was joking. I told her I had a flight and an important conference. She waved it off like I was talking about a coffee date. "It's not that serious, Diana. You just talk to clients and drink free cocktails. They can live without you for a day." Darren chuckled into his wine glass, not making eye contact. My mother smiled with that soft, amused expression she uses whenever Marissa scolds me. It felt like the entire table agreed that my work was optional, my commitments frivolous, my life easier and therefore less valid. I kept my voice calm. "Marissa, I can't skip a business trip to do school drop-off. This has been planned for weeks." She scoffed and shook her head, telling me it must be nice not to have real responsibilities. Then she muttered something about how helping families shouldn't be such a burden for me. Mom lightly chuckled at that, and something inside me shifted, the kind of shift that happens slowly over years, and then all at once in a single breath. I set down my fork and said with a smile that was anything but amused, "You're right, Marissa, and that's why I just removed my credit card from your grocery account." The room went silent. Marissa froze. Darren stopped chewing. Even the kids paused their bickering with the iPad. My mother's smile evaporated. During the pandemic, when money was tight for them, I had quietly linked my card to their grocery account so they could get necessities without awkward conversations. They never took it off. Even after raises and promotions, the charges kept coming. Wine snacks, expensive cereal, Amazon pantry items, hundreds of dollars a month. I never mentioned it. Until that moment. Marissa's voice cracked as she asked if I was joking. I told her I wasn't. The tension was so thick that even Mom didn't know how to soften it. No one spoke for nearly 2 minutes. It was the quietest dinner we'd had in years. I left early, hugged. The kids wished Mom a good night and walked to my car with a strange sense of calm settling over me. It wasn't anger, it wasn't guilt. It was something else, clarity maybe, or the beginning of it. What I didn't know then was that the next morning would ignite something much bigger, because while I was boarding my flight and taking the first real breath I'd had in months, Marissa was already plotting her next move, and I had no idea how far she was willing to go. By the time my alarm rang at 5 the next morning, the tension from dinner still sat in my stomach like uncooked dough. I showered, dressed, and headed to the airport before sunrise, expecting at least a few hours of peace before the inevitable fallout. But as I stood in line at the security checkpoint, my phone buzzed, then buzzed again, then again. The first message was from Marissa, 6:38 a.m. I'm assuming the credit card thing was a joke. Darren just tried ordering the kids' school lunches and it didn't go through. Call me. A minute later came a text from her husband, 6:41 a.m. Hey Diana, the lunch order failed. Are you sure your card wasn't declined by accident? Then my mother, 6:44 a.m. Diana honey. You could have warned them before doing something so drastic. They were counting on that order this morning. I stared at the screen, feeling that familiar cocktail of guilt, irritation, and exhaustion begin to churn. I didn't respond, not because I didn't have an answer, but because I was tired of explaining, tired of justifying, tired of being the only adult expected to manage everyone else's crises. The constant assumption that I was available, useful, and responsible for them had finally reached its limit. I boarded my flight, silenced my phone, and let myself inhale the first quiet breath of the day. For once, no one could reach me at 30,000 feet. I slept deeper on that plane than I had in months. When we landed in Chicago, I turned my phone back on. 4 missed calls from Marissa, 2 from Mom, 1 from Darren, 12 messages in the family group chat. The pit in my stomach tightened, but I made a deliberate choice not to open anything yet. I had work to do. I wasn't going to let my sister's crisis, real or imaginary, derail the biggest summit of my year. The conference was a blur of handshakes, good questions, successful pitches, and lukewarm coffee. I nailed my presentation. My clients were impressed. My boss was thrilled. I locked down a deal that could fuel our team for the next 6 months. It should have felt exhilarating. But by the time I got back to my hotel room that evening, the quiet dread I'd been holding at bay finally caught up to me. 27 unread messages, all from my family. I sat on the edge of the bed and opened the group chat. Mom Diana, I'm sure you didn't mean to cause trouble, but the kids had to borrow lunch today. It was very embarrassing for Marissa. Marissa. Wow. Just wow. The kids literally had nothing to eat. Do you even understand what that feels like? Darren. I just don't get why you would pull the card without warning. This isn't like you. Mom, you're lucky you don't have children, so you don't know what it's like to worry about this stuff every day. Marissa, honestly, if you're going to melt down over a few groceries, keep your money. We'll be fine. Then 5 messages later, Marissa, actually, no. We won't be fine. I just got the grocery bill from yesterday, $19,000 for the month. You'll cover that one, right? Since you've been helping all this time. I let out a long, slow breath. Marissa was spiraling, flinging accusations, exaggerations, and emotional daggers with the precision of someone who'd practiced for years. I didn't respond. I didn't even acknowledge the messages. I set the phone aside and stared at the ceiling for a long time, letting the white noise of the hotel's HVAC system drown out my thoughts. For the first time in my adult life, I allowed myself to rest without worrying about who would be disappointed if I didn't answer immediately. The weekend became a small sanctuary. I slept in. I ordered room service. I walked along the lakefront, bought myself a coffee, browsed bookstores, and let myself exist without guilt pressing down on me like a thumb on a bruise. By the time I boarded my flight back home on Sunday evening, I'd convinced myself I could handle whatever mess was waiting for me. I was wrong. When I reached my condo, I found a folded piece of paper stuffed halfway into my mailbox. No envelope, no greeting. Just shoved inside like junk mail. The handwriting was my mother's. Diana, I don't know what's gotten into you lately, but you're being unreasonable. This family has always helped each other, and your behavior is hurting us all. I hope you come to your senses before you burn bridges you can't rebuild. Mom. No call, no conversation, just a passive-aggressive note delivered like a threat disguised as concern. The sting was immediate and sharp, cutting deeper than the messages from Marissa had. My own mother had decided I was the problem. I didn't respond. I didn't argue. I didn't try to explain myself. I simply walked into my condo, set my suitcase down, and let the silence wash over me. 3 days later, the silence shattered. I wasn't invited to my niece's birthday party. Marissa posted pictures everywhere, all smiles and frosting. The caption read, "Surrounded by the people who actually show up." My mother shared it with a string of heart emojis. Still, I stayed silent. But on the following Saturday, things took a darker turn. I had plans to meet an old college friend for lunch downtown. Halfway through my sandwich, my phone buzzed. Mom. I ignored it. It buzzed again. Marissa. Then Mom again. 3 missed calls. I finally answered on the 4th. Diana, my mother said sharply. Where are you? At lunch, I said cautiously. Why? Well, she said, her tone clipped and icy. Marissa said, you promised to take the kids to the museum today. They've been waiting on the porch for 20 minutes. I froze. No, I said slowly. I absolutely did not promise that. Well, Marissa said you offered. Mom, I said firmly, she's lying. Again. There was a long pause. Then a cold dismissive. Well, they're waiting. What do you want me to tell them? The truth, I said. Tell them their mother made it up. She hung up on me. When I got home that evening, there was another note on my door. This one from Darren, folded neatly, the handwriting unmistakably his. It said, it really hurt the kids to be stood up like that. Don't make promises you can't keep. No mention of Marissa, no accountability, just another neatly packaged accusation. Later that night, when I called my mother to confront her, she sounded tired, but dismissive. You know, she said, I don't know what's gotten into you. You've changed. No, I told her quietly. I just stopped letting myself be walked on. Well, she snapped back. You didn't used to be this selfish. That word selfish hit me harder than anything Marissa had said. It echoed through my mind long after I hung up. And as I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling again, I realized something unsettling. Marissa wasn't just angry. She was escalating. This wasn't normal sibling conflict anymore. It wasn't about groceries or school drop-offs or unpaid favors. It was a campaign, and it was only going to get worse. The Monday after the museum incident began like any other. I woke up early, made coffee, and opened my work laptop, determined to reclaim a sense of normalcy after the chaos of the weekend. But just as I finished reading through my morning emails, my work phone buzzed a number I didn't recognize. I hesitated, then answered. Hi, is this Diana Willette? A cautious voice asked. Yes, this is she. This is Melanie from HR. Do you have a minute? I wanted to ask about a call we received earlier this morning. My stomach tightened. A call? She exhaled softly, choosing her words with care. Someone phoned the office claiming to be a concerned parent. They said you abandoned their children at a museum. The world seemed to sharpen and blur at the same time. For a moment, I didn't speak. I couldn't, Melanie continued. We didn't take the complaint seriously. The details didn't add up. But because the call mentioned child endangerment, we're documenting it for protocol. We wanted to give you a heads up. The room felt colder. Melanie, I never promised to take anyone's children anywhere. It's a lie. We figured as much. Her tone softened. Like I said, we're not pursuing it. But if it happens again, please let us know immediately. We ended the call politely, professionally, but the moment my phone hit the desk, I folded forward, burying my face in my hands. My own sister, my blood, had called my workplace pretending to be a parent. She hadn't just tried to embarrass me or guilt-trip me. She had tried to undermine my job, my livelihood, my career. The enormity of it washed over me slowly, like a tide pulling away the sand beneath my feet. I sat there for a long time, staring at the screen, watching my reflection blur through unshed tears I refused to let fall. For the first time in years, I felt something I had never associated with Marissa before: fear. Not fear of her physically, fear of what she was capable of. Because once someone is willing to lie about you to your employer, there's no line they won't cross next. That night, I didn't go out. I didn't answer calls. I didn't even turn on the lights for a while. I sat on my couch with only the flicker of the street lamp outside, letting the quiet press against me from all sides. In the stillness, something in me started cracking, not with anger, but with recognition. I had spent years bending myself into shapes that made my family comfortable. The reliable one, the responsible one, the helper, the babysitter, the wallet, the safety net, the emotional sponge. And now that I had drawn a single boundary, they treated me as if I had betrayed them, as if I owed them my life simply because they had children and I didn't. By Wednesday, I could hardly recognize myself. The anxiety that usually simmered quietly beneath the surface was now a constant hum. I checked my emails obsessively. I worried Marissa would call HR again. I worried Mom would show up at my door. I worried about which lie would come next. At some point, exhaustion replaced fear, and I knew something had to change. So I did something unexpected. I reached out to the people I had drifted away from while trying to be my family's safety net. I met an old college friend for coffee. I apologized for being absent, and she laughed, saying she figured motherhood and obligations swallowed me whole. Turns out it was everybody else's motherhood, I joked weakly. She didn't laugh at that, not really, but she squeezed my hand. I went to the gym not to punish myself, but to feel my body move in ways that reminded me I was alive. I joined a trivia night at a pub near my condo. Nobody there knew me as Marissa's sister or Mom's easy child or the aunt who always paid for things. I was just Diana. And oddly enough, that felt new. By the end of the week, the emotional fog started to lift. My work trip had been a success. My team was proud of me. My boss mentioned upcoming opportunities, promotions, conferences. My friends seemed glad to hear from me again. For a moment, I allowed myself to believe the worst had passed. But life has a way of revealing the truth at the least convenient time. On Saturday morning, as I was walking to the cafe near my condo, my phone buzzed with a text from my cousin Gina, one of the few relatives who hadn't chosen sides. Gina. Hey, random question. Did everything blow up with Marissa after Chicago? She's been talking to Aunt Linda and, well, things sound messy. I stared at her message, feeling a strange mix of dread and validation. Talking to Aunt Linda was code for starting a smear campaign. I replied, "It's a long story. Maybe we can talk later." She responded almost instantly, "I'm here if you need anything." And for what it's worth, a lot of us have seen how Marissa treats you. You're not imagining it. I stopped walking. Those words, "you're not imagining it," were like a small hand reaching through the dark. I hadn't realized until that moment how desperately I'd needed someone to say them. 2 weeks passed like that, quietly, cautiously. I focused on work, on rebuilding friendships, on inching my way back into the world as someone who existed outside my family's expectations. I even began writing again short stories without pressure or purpose, just words on a page that felt like breathing. And then one evening, as I returned home from a late work shift, I saw something sitting on my doormat, a birthday card, pink envelope, glitter edges, a little crooked sticker in the corner. I recognized the handwriting, my niece. My breath caught. I sat on my doorstep and opened it. Inside was a message written in neat, practiced handwriting. "We missed you at the party. Mommy said you're taking a break from family. I hope you come back soon." A small smiley face was drawn next to her name in crayon. The ache that settled in my chest was different from the anger before. Softer, deeper, more painful. I pressed the card against my knee and let the heaviness close in around me. My silence had protected my peace, but it had also cost me pieces of the family I actually cared about. I didn't cry loudly or dramatically, just a quiet, steady stream of sadness, grief for the version of my family I'd always tried to believe in, a version that might never have existed in the first place. The next morning, something shifted. There's a kind of clarity that comes only after hitting emotional bedrock. A quiet realization that you've spent your whole life being the version of yourself others demanded, and when you stop even for a second, their discomfort becomes your punishment. I didn't want to go back to that, so I began making changes. Not bold, dramatic ones, gentle ones, internal ones, the kind that only I could see. I removed myself from the shared family calendar Mom used to organize holidays and meals. I deleted reminders for birthdays, school events, family gatherings. I updated my emergency contact at work. Marissa had been on the list for years, but I replaced her with 2 close friends who had actually earned that trust. I opened a new credit card and slowly migrated all my auto-pay bills to it, removing any financial overlap with my family. Each move felt like reclaiming a small piece of myself. Each click was a quiet declaration, I will not be responsible for your chaos anymore. What I didn't realize then was that these small steps would become the foundation for something much bigger. something that would expose just how far Marissa was willing to go to maintain her narrative. Because while I was slowly rebuilding myself, Marissa was preparing to escalate again. And her next move would be the one that changed everything. The unraveling began on an ordinary Tuesday, one of those bland, forgettable days that shouldn't hold any significance, but somehow end up marking a turning point in your life. I was on my lunch break standing at the self-checkout kiosk in the grocery store near my office, scanning a bag of grapes and a bottle of sparkling water when my phone buzzed. It was a message from Claire, the wife of my old college roommate. She rarely texted me directly, so the notification alone was surprising. Her message was short. "Hey, Diana, I'm not sure what's going on, but your sister posted something weird on Facebook. Thought you should see it." I tapped the link she included and waited. The store was noisy kids, whining carts, squeaking the checkout scanner chirping, but as the post loaded, all the noise receded into a dull, distant hum. Marissa had created a fundraiser. The header read, "Help us provide a stable future for our kids." Below that was a paragraph claiming they had suffered unexpected financial setbacks, followed by a line that made my heart sink. "Our oldest needs urgent dental surgery, and we're doing everything we can. Anything helps, even a share." There was a picture of my niece smiling her teeth, perfectly fine, completely normal. Nothing about her was indicative of any urgent surgery. But the real punch came further down in a single casual sentence. "We used to have a relative helping us, but she cut us off completely." No name, but it didn't need one. Everyone in our extended family knew who she meant. Comments were already pouring in. Prayers, donations, sympathy offers to drop off meals. Some of our aunts had already shared it. The post had more than 80 shares. I felt a strange combination of nausea and clarity settling in my stomach, a hollow understanding that Marissa had reached a new level of manipulation, one that didn't just distort the truth, but weaponized it publicly. I abandoned my self-checkout cart mid-transaction and walked out of the store, the fluorescent lights blurring as my eyes adjusted to the afternoon sun. I sat in my car, locked the doors, and reread the fundraiser 3 times, trying to make sense of it. There was no dental surgery. There had never been one. My niece's school would have contacted a parent if something like that were happening. Not only had Marissa lied, she was using her child's face, her innocent smile, as bait for sympathy and money. For a few seconds, I genuinely couldn't breathe. Then the shock shifted into something colder, sharper, a calm I didn't recognize at first. Marissa expected me to explode. She expected me to call, confront, scream, or fall apart. She wanted proof that I was unstable so she could point at me and say, "See, she's the problem." But I didn't call her. I didn't message her. I didn't post anything publicly. Instead, I began planning. That evening, once I got home and changed into something comfortable, I called Danny, an old friend from college who worked in digital forensics and fraud detection for a cybersecurity company. I told her the situation carefully, leaving emotion out of my voice. It was the first time I'd recounted the events of the last month out loud, and hearing them in sequence made the escalation even more disturbing. Danny didn't hesitate. "Send me the link," she said. "These platforms are required to verify medical claims if they're flagged. If she's lying, they'll take it seriously." Could they remove the fundraiser? Absolutely, and if she's done this before, it could trigger a deeper investigation. She paused, then added gently, "Diana, this isn't normal. Your sister is misusing a medical narrative. That's dangerous." "I know. And the platform can involve the IRS if the funds go over certain thresholds." I hadn't even considered that, but it planted a small seed in my mind. After we hung up, I opened my laptop and created a private Google Drive folder titled, "In Case She Pushes." The name felt almost symbolic, like pressing a button on a bomb I'd never intended to build. One by one, I uploaded screenshots. The fundraiser page, the comments, the photo of my niece, Marissa's implication that I cut them off, the donation count, the shares, the sympathetic messages. I added another subfolder containing the texts from Marissa, Mom, and Darren, the ones accusing me of leaving children hungry, lying about museum promises, and being selfish. Then I did something I should have done much earlier. I emailed my niece's school. I worded it politely and vaguely, saying I was a close family member, trying to confirm whether the school had communicated any medical needs or upcoming procedures involving my niece. Their response came 2 days later. "To our knowledge, there is no scheduled dental surgery or medical procedure on record for name redacted. We hope this information clarifies your concern." That email went straight into the folder. Piece by piece, the truth was lining up like a trail of breadcrumbs. Meanwhile, the fundraiser kept growing. It hit $800 by Wednesday, $1, $400 by Friday, and nearly $2,000 by the following Sunday. Marissa posted an update thanking everyone and claiming they'd found a dental clinic willing to reduce the cost out of kindness. She made sure to mention again that a former family supporter had abandoned them. The comments shifted from sympathy to mild judgment, but not toward her, toward me. And even though none of them said my name, the insinuations were sharp. Some relatives don't appreciate what parents go through. It's sad when family turns their back. Kids shouldn't suffer because adults can't get along. By that point, I was done feeling hurt, done feeling guilty, done feeling anything but a steady, focused determination. This wasn't just petty behavior anymore. It was fraud. And people were giving her money based on lies. Claire became an unexpected ally. When I told her what was really going on, she looked horrified. She worked in nonprofit PR and said, "Diana, if she's manipulating medical claims, that's grounds for removal, possibly for audits." She helped me draft a concise, evidence-based statement that didn't attack Marissa personally, but flagged concerning inconsistencies in the fundraiser's description. She submitted it using a burner email, attaching the screenshots and the school's official reply. Meanwhile, Danny followed up with the platform directly after noticing unusual IP patterns linked to the account. Apparently, Marissa had a history, multiple old fundraisers, vague claims, unverified emergencies. Not all were egregious, but enough to raise suspicion. Danny told me if this is the same account, they're going to take action. I thanked her, and for the first time in weeks, I felt a sense of control returning not through revenge, but through truth. Because Marissa was counting on silence. She didn't expect someone who wasn't afraid of the truth. She didn't expect someone who documented everything. She didn't expect someone who would not play her game. And she certainly didn't expect that the platform would investigate. I went to sleep that night knowing the storm was gathering. I could feel it tightening around me, subtle but undeniable. What I didn't know was just how hard it would hit or how far Marissa's desperation would push her when the consequences finally reached her doorstep. 4 days after Claire submitted the report and Danny forwarded her findings, the fallout began not with a bang, but with a quiet digital ripple. I was in a morning team meeting when my phone vibrated twice in quick succession. I ignored it at first, focusing on the conversation about Q2 projections, but the persistent buzz made me check my screen. 2 messages from Claire. 11:17 a.m. It's happening. 11:19 a.m. They just pulled the whole fundraiser. Statement incoming. My pulse kicked up. I excused myself. Stepped into the hallway and opened the fundraising page. A stark gray box filled the screen where the vibrant fundraiser had once been. Instead of my niece's smiling face, I saw a single message. This fundraiser has been removed for violating our terms of service. Funds may be withheld pending verification. Underneath that was a smaller line. We take fraud seriously. If you believe you have been misled, please contact our support team. Comments were gone. Donation buttons disabled. The entire thing wiped clean. I stood frozen, the fluorescent hallway lights humming above me as the reality settled. The platform had taken action. They had verified the inconsistencies. They had connected the dots. Marissa's carefully curated narrative had collapsed. Within an hour, the first whispers appeared online. An old neighbor posted cryptically, "Funny how some people cry wolf until someone finally checks the sheep." A former coworker added, "Some of us suspected, now we know." By lunchtime, the gossip had trickled through half our extended family. I received a message from my cousin Gina. 12:03 p.m. "You see it, Aunt Linda is fuming. She donated $250. Brace yourself." Then, unexpectedly, a message from an unknown number. 12:40 p.m. "Hi, Diana. I'm one of Marissa's old coworkers. I just wanted to thank you. A few of us knew things weren't adding up, but none of us felt comfortable speaking up." I didn't respond to that one. I wasn't ready. 2 hours later, as I was wrapping up a report at my desk, my phone buzzed again. This time it was Marissa. Just one text. 3:46 p.m. "You ruined my life." I stared at the words for a long time. They didn't sting the way she meant them to. If anything, the message left a hollow ache, sadness more than anger, because I knew more clearly than ever that Marissa truly believed she was the victim. Her worldview left no room for accountability. If something hurt her, she assumed it must have been done to her. The irony was almost painful. I hadn't ruined anything. I didn't call the platform. I didn't lie. I didn't take advantage of anyone's generosity. All I had done was stop shielding her from consequences she created for herself. I locked my phone, went back to work, and intentionally didn't reply. That evening, as the sky dimmed and the city lights flickered awake outside my window, I heard a sudden frantic pounding on my front door. Not knocking, pounding. My heart climbed into my throat. I opened the door only a few inches at first. Marissa stood on my porch hair, frizzed, face flushed, holding a folder so thick it looked ready to burst. She pushed the door wider with her free hand and stormed inside before I could stop her. "You think you're clever, don't you?" she snapped, thrusting the folder toward me. "You think you can destroy my family? You think you can embarrass me and Darren and make us look like liars?" I closed the door calmly and turned to face her. "Marissa, lower your voice." She ignored me, slapping the folder onto my dining table. Papers spilled out, screenshots, printed comments, even a few pictures of me from old Facebook posts. "Look at this," she said. "This is everything you've been doing behind my back. You think I don't know. You think I don't see you stalking my page, calling people digging up dirt?" I blinked slowly. I didn't call anyone. "Liar," she shouted, voice cracking. "The fundraiser got suspended. They told us they're withholding the money. And then the bank called about our account. Do you have any idea what you've done?" For a moment, I just stared at her. This woman who once braided my hair, who once shared clothes with me in high school, who once cried in my arms after her first breakup, the woman I had loved and defended for years. She stood in front of me with wild eyes, incandescent rage, and not even a flicker of recognition that her own actions had led her here. "Marissa," I said, voice steady, "I didn't do anything except tell the truth." She scoffed. "Truth, you've always been jealous. That's what this is. You hate that I have a family and you don't. You hate that people care about me. You hate." "Stop," I said sharply. Her words were knives she wanted me to feel. She froze, startled by my tone. "Marissa," I said slowly, "you lied. You created a fake medical emergency. You used your daughter's picture. You took money from people under false pretenses. I didn't sabotage you. You did that to yourself." For a moment, her face contorted shock, denial, fury, shame, and then something darker, something close to hatred. I realized then, with a sudden clarity, that she wasn't capable of seeing herself as wrong. In her mind, I had always been the villain the moment I stopped being useful. "You're sick," she whispered. "You're absolutely sick." I took a step back, not out of fear, but out of a strange grief. "You should go home." She stared at me for a long time, trembling. Then she grabbed her folder, marched to the door, and slammed it so hard the frame rattled. I didn't chase her. I didn't yell after her. I didn't even watch from the window. For the first time in my life, I felt no instinct to fix her emotions or absorb her anger. Something had fundamentally shifted. 4 days later, I received a call from Susan, a representative from the fundraising platform. She spoke in the careful, neutral tone of someone trained to avoid legal implications. "Ms. Willett, I can't disclose all details due to privacy policies," she said, "but I did want to thank you for the information you provided. It helped us confirm certain concerns we already had." "Concerns?" I asked. She hesitated. "Let's just say this wasn't the first time we saw questionable activity from the account. There appears to be a pattern, multiple fundraisers over the years with unverified claims." I exhaled. That single sentence told me everything. "What happens now?" I asked quietly. "In cases like this," she said, "we review bank transfers, freeze any disbursements, and if necessary, notify tax authorities." It was more than enough. I hung up and sat in silence, absorbing the final truth. Marissa had been doing this for years. This wasn't a one-time mistake. It was a pattern, a habit of exploiting sympathy and bending the truth until it snapped. That evening, I received another letter in my mailbox. My mother's handwriting. Harsh loops, rushed ink, and unmistakable edge. "Diana, what you did was cruel. You embarrassed this family. Whatever Marissa did, it could have been handled privately. Blood is blood. You don't turn your back on your own." The pastor called. "People are talking. You should be ashamed." I read it once, folded it, and placed it in the kitchen drawer with the others. Then I wrote her a short note back, placed it in her mailbox the next morning, and walked away without looking back. It said if silence was supposed to save her, someone should have taught her not to lie. That was the last time my mother reached out. But surprisingly, it wasn't the last voice I heard from Marissa's house. 3 days later, I received a call from someone I didn't expect, Darren. His voice trembled not with anger, but with exhaustion. "Diana," he said softly, I didn't know about any of it, and I'm sorry." It was the first apology I had heard in months, and the only one that felt real. After Darren's call, the world didn't suddenly become soft or forgiving again, But something in the air shifted. His apology wasn't dramatic or desperate. It was quiet and honest, the kind of voice you hear from someone who has been living inside a storm and finally realizes the wind wasn't coming from the direction he thought. He told me he had confronted Marissa after the bank called about the frozen funds. He had asked questions she couldn't answer, demanded explanations she couldn't give, and when she finally broke down crying, he put the pieces together himself. "I should have seen it earlier," he said, voice trembling with shame. "I'm sorry I believed her, and not you." I told him I wasn't angry with him. In truth, I wasn't. Darren had never been the architect of the manipulation, just one of its casualties. He said the kids missed me and wanted to know if I'd ever be willing to talk to them again. I told him, maybe, not now, but maybe one day. We ended the call on a gentle human note, one of the few moments of kindness that had survived the wreckage. In the weeks that followed, life took on a strange mixture of peace and quiet mourning. My phone didn't ring as much. Family group chats stopped buzzing because I'd left them long ago. The absence of noise became a kind of soundtrack, a sudden space where I could finally hear myself think. For the first time in years, I realized how drained I had been. How much of my life had been consumed by managing other people's crises, soothing their tempers, absorbing their resentment, and constantly being the emotional cushion they relied on. Without that weight, my days felt light. It was unsettling at first, almost too quiet, like living in a house where the electricity had gone out. But after a while, that quiet started to feel like a gift. I began waking up early to watch the sunrise from my balcony with a cup of coffee. I picked up a novel I had bought months earlier and actually finished it. I reconnected with friends I'd unintentionally pushed aside while trying to solve Marissa's problems. I even joined a weekend hiking group that met near the state park trail. Something I'd always wanted to do, but never found the time for. My body felt different too. I slept deeper, walked, more breathed easier. My shoulders stopped curling inward from stress. There were evenings when I'd catch myself smiling without any particular reason. But there were pangs of grief too, mostly when I thought of the kids. They were innocent. They didn't manipulate, didn't lie, didn't weaponize guilt. They were casualties of adults who couldn't untangle their emotions responsibly. Sometimes when I drove past the school or the park where I used to take them, I felt a tug in my chest. I missed their laughter, the way they'd run toward me when they saw my car, their tiny hands wrapped around mine. Those memories were bittersweet warm, but edged with sadness. Still, I told myself the truth. Stepping away from Marissa didn't mean I stopped loving the kids. It meant I stopped sacrificing myself for a system that had no intention of ever giving anything back. 2 months after the fundraiser collapse, another unexpected opportunity arrived. A friend from a writing group I joined casually suggested I submit one of my short pieces to a mid-size online magazine. I did it on a whim, half sure it would be ignored. Instead, the editor emailed me 3 days later. "We'd love to publish this," she wrote. "Your voice is compelling, vulnerable, and painfully relatable." The piece was titled, "When Family Crosses the Line, Rebuilding Yourself After Boundary Burnout." It wasn't a direct retelling of my story, or rather it wasn't a retelling with names or details, but the emotional truth was there. The exhaustion, the guilt, the manipulation, the clarity that comes when you finally stop apologizing for protecting yourself. Once it was published, it began spreading. Slowly at first, then more quickly. Readers shared it on social media, with captions like, "This hit too close to home, and I didn't know anyone else went through this." I received dozens of anonymous messages from strangers, people thanking me, people crying to me, through paragraphs, people explaining they felt seen for the first time. One message said, "Your words gave me the courage to block my sister for the first time in 10 years. Another said, "I didn't even know emotional abuse within families was real until I read this." Someone else wrote, "You saved me." I sat with those messages for a long time, stunned. I had expected nothing more than a quiet publication. I hadn't expected to become a mirror for so many wounded people. It was the first time in months I cried not from pain but from recognition, because for the first time my story wasn't being twisted, mocked, minimized, or ignored. It was being understood. A week later, a producer from a talk show reached out asking if I'd be willing to speak on an episode about financial manipulation and family estrangement. I declined, not because I was afraid, but because I didn't need the spotlight. I didn't need revenge delivered with applause. I didn't need strangers to know my face or associate me with my sister's downfall. My healing wasn't meant for an audience. It was meant for me. Instead, I kept writing. I kept hiking. I kept letting my days become full with things that nourished me rather than drained me. I established new routines, weekly yoga, monthly brunches with friends, movie nights with coworkers. The tiny rituals of a life unburdened by someone else's chaos. Work flourished too. After the success of the Chicago summit and the closure of several new accounts, my boss called me into her office with a smile. "Diana, we've been impressed with your leadership. There's a role opening soon, bigger team, bigger budget, more creative direction. I think you'd be perfect." You'd think I would have cried or screamed or hugged her. Instead, I felt a quiet, powerful warmth bloom inside my chest. I thanked her, walked back to my office, closed the door, and sat there in stillness, feeling maybe for the first time genuinely proud of myself. But not everything was peaceful. I still heard things, small pockets of gossip trickling back through extended family. Apparently, Marissa's reputation had taken a heavy hit. Some relatives stopped speaking to her, others whispered behind her back. A few defended her still, but their voices were quiet and uncertain. Her attempts to start new fundraisers under different names lasted only days before being flagged and removed. Communities talk. Trust once broken is hard to rebuild. As for Mom, she didn't contact me again. Not a phone call, not a text, not even a birthday message. Gina told me Mom was still hurt and didn't want to talk about what happened. That was fine. I didn't expect closure from someone who had spent years refusing to see what was right in front of her. But Darren called again months later. His voice sounded steadier this time. "I just wanted to say, thank you," he said quietly, "for not yelling, for not shaming us, for not making things worse when you had every reason to." I told him I hoped he and the kids were okay. He said they were doing better. Then he said something that stuck with me. Sometimes losing what you took for granted is the only way to realize how much someone mattered. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. And so here I am now, standing in a life I barely recognize, one I built piece by piece after walking away from the fire my sister set. I didn't destroy my family. I didn't humiliate them. I didn't ruin anyone's life. I simply stopped bleeding for people who never once offered a bandage. In the end, the best revenge wasn't exposure or punishment or even justice. The best revenge was peace, and peace finally was mine.